thank you so much. And I really would appreciate any questions or prompts you can give me. It's always helpful to have people who are smarter than me give me ideas for discussion with our guests. Welcome to the Nonprofit Report, your weekly update on nonprofit organizations, issues, and leaders. I'm your host, Mark Oppenheim, and today we'll be highlighting the work of 3 nonprofits that bring the arts to underserved community. Our special guests today are Shelby Williams-Gonzalez, President and CEO of Inner City Arts in Los Angeles, and Michael Manson, founder and executive director of the Musical Arts Institute in Chicago, and Liz Hopfan, founder and executive director of Free Arts New York City. Let me see if we can get you all on the, here we go. Let's see if we can start your videos. Okay. Let's see. Here we go. If you could all start your videos, that would just be great. There we go. And here we go. Asked to start videos. Sorry about that. Oscar is having some technical difficulties, so I'm kind of on my own, but it's great to have you all here. And let me just sort of set this up. Public school funding for arts has dried up as schools have increasingly focused on tested subjects like math, English, history, and such. And art is about dreaming, the joy of creation, no testable material here. So let's talk about public school funding and how it conveys a message. And if you all could start just sort of commenting on the importance of art to young people, the importance of art to a strong civil society. Shelby, can we start with you at Inner City Arts? How do you see the importance of art in our public schools and in our children's lives as compared to a subject that is testable like math or history? What is your perspective on why art is something that you would dedicate your career toward advancing?
Well, I think first and foremost, arts, the creative process only lends hand to all, as you said, testable subjects, right? Because with any art form, whether it's a visual arts, performing, mixed media, digital, right? You can go in any realm, but it's really about the creative process that I think lends its hand to any subject. We're teaching young people to try things, to challenge themselves, to take risks in a way that is a soft skill that goes across any platform. So that's really, I think, the importance. And that's why it's important in the education and a holistic approach to young people as a whole. They should have a place where they can try things and take creative risks, whether they pursue the arts fully or it's something that is of a hobby to them.
So your point is that in order to encourage creative thinking, out of the box thinking, risk taking, right? You cannot just learn the technique of doing a math equation or the technique of writing a grammatical sentence. You have to get beyond that. You have to get into the creation without bounds. And I guess that's part of what you provide at Inner City Arts?
It is. I think you can I like to break it down as there's form, function, and then freedom, right? Understand the form of any art form that you desire from, I can take, for example, I have a dance and choreography background, and I learned the techniques of ballet and modern dance and West African dance. And then you learn the function of those movements. And then it's within that freedom that you really then blossom into finding your own voice and using that means to really tap into yourself and share that part with the rest of the world.
It's sort of that improvisation that brings us to music. Michael, I didn't mean to suggest that music technique is not testable. I certainly, or dance technique for that matter, Shelby. But when you're bringing music to your young folks in Chicago, Michael, how do you approach this? Or do they approach you and tell you what they want to learn?
Well, I think it's both. And like you say, there are skills that are testable. So it's not like we're in a bubble and we're free form totally. But just like you were talking about, there's room for improvisation. There's room for interpretation. I mean, even in the most classical forms of music, where you're just reading music totally, there's still room for interpretation, of being yourself. And after being a musician for over 40 years, I've learned that it's impossible for me to color inside the lines. I know how to color inside the lines, but I just can't stay there because I'm free and I'm free to express. And we're trying to teach children to do the same thing, to learn the skill set. And then after you learn the skill set, stop thinking about it and be free and express yourself.
Who do you serve, Michael? Who in your community are part of the Musical Arts Institute's family, as it were?
Sure. So we serve about 1,200 kids on the far south side of Chicago, and our target student is around 6th or 7th grade, and interested in expressing themselves and interested in learning art, and that's our target student. But we expose music to about 1,200 kids a week, though. But then we are looking for those who are really, really have an affinity for music and arts, and we really want to take them to the next level as well.
Shelby, what is your footprint?
So we're based in Los Angeles, right, just on the outskirts of downtown Los Angeles. And we are a program that really serves K through 12 and a little bit beyond. Our in-school program is primarily with elementary age, the K through 5th or 6th, depending on what part of the county you're in. And then we have additional programming and self-select programming for high school students. And we're looking at, we serve around 5,000. My number is a little off in our in-school program, but quite a large footprint of folks coming onto campus, obviously pre-pandemic, but also still through virtual learning.
And Liz, I love the name of your organization, Free Arts. It has so many different meanings, right? Free arts, and free arts. Talk about free arts in New York City.
Yeah, I mean, similarly to, I think, probably more inner city arts, we serve a wide range of kids, really from age 6 to 21. So we have been working with a lot of kids who have now been part of our program and have graduated high school and are in college and studying art. And, actually we are building out a pretty strong alumni program to be able to support those kids continually. We don't work directly in schools. We partner with different schools, community centers, social service agencies. We work a lot for our elementary school age program. We work a lot with the Department of Homeless Services. Obviously a population that, this past year was in dire need of programming. And while we couldn't do anything in person for them, we were sending monthly art kits and activity packets and things like that. But, similarly to what I think Michael and Shelby said, it's art is about risk taking, about challenging yourself. We have a motto: there are no mistakes in art, which is super sweet with the little kids. Everybody, I think to hear them say that at the beginning of a program or something like that is very freeing. Obviously, as you get a little bit more into the fine arts, there are some mistakes, or there's a little bit of right and wrong, but we like to sort of have that as our overarching motto.
So can we talk a little bit about the idea of discipline, right? Keeping time, being on time, right? Finishing a work that you started, right? The discipline of the selection, whether it's the paint or the step or the note. Talk about how the arts, Michael, informs a young person's approach to their own life, and how that can actually connect neurons that within the boring confines of a classroom with 4 walls and a little boxy kind of a thing might not be conveyed.
Sure. So there is the discipline of music is the skill set, and it does take some discipline. It does take some repetition in order to learn the skill set, and so there's a lot of problem solving that happens. I've heard it said that musicians make the best mathematicians because we learn how to problem solve, and so. And then the repetition of breaking things down and to find solutions, and then repetition over and over and over. That's the discipline of music. And once you have that discipline, then you're free to apply that discipline and be free. So I tell my students, you practice until you don't have to practice anymore. You apply the discipline until you don't have to do it anymore. Then once you don't have to do it anymore, you don't think about it anymore. You're free to be yourself. But until then, until you learn the skill set, that's where the discipline comes in, where you have to practice daily and you have to practice repetitiously. And like I said, those skills always transfer over. So you don't necessarily, after you've learned the skill and after you've learned how to improvise, you don't necessarily have to go into music full time, but those skills and that work ethic actually transfers over into anything that you want to do in life.
And people are also working toward a performance or recital where they are going to be showcasing their skills. So it really concentrates the mind. It is just like working toward a job interview, right?
Yeah, or working towards a deadline where you have to be
toward a deadline,
where you have to do a presentation. It's like, okay, this is it. We got to be there, and we have to be prepared. And so you have to be on point, and you have to, practice your craft until you get it.
And your deadline, Liz, is an exhibition, and you have an exhibition right in back of you.
Yeah, one of the things we try and do every year, is to have an exhibition of some of our young people's artwork. And historically, it has been in person, but last year and again this year, we are doing it virtually. It actually, tomorrow night on Sotheby's.com, they're hosting an exhibition for us, and it'll be up for a while. But it is an opportunity for our young people to work towards, having to put together or select one of their pieces, create an artist statement, which is an important part of being an artist. We really primarily focus only on the visual arts. So write an artist statement, and then obviously be proud to see it hanging, even virtually, on the walls of a major auction house is pretty exciting for them. But our young kids are also, looking to apply. We have a program for middle and high school kids who are interested in applying to specialized art high schools or to, BFA or art-focused colleges. And so they have to work towards putting together that portfolio, and they have to be able to select the work that is best and make improvements. And so they're working towards those deadlines as well, to be able to go to where they would like to go. But yeah.
It's so important that we also are able to serve full communities. There's a real issue particularly in the inner cities, with homelessness or housing insecurity, poverty, and so on. Shelby, how do you ensure that you meet people where they are so that children are not disadvantaged based on the circumstances in which they need to grow up? Do you have special programs and outreach to those who live in insecure circumstances?
Well, that's tied into our mission on how we identify schools that we want to work with. We're really looking to partner with schools that don't have the arts on campus or arts already integrated into their curriculum. And then it's working with administrators to make sure that, yes, they have some sort of, for lack of a better term, skin in the game in terms of paying for our programming, but we have diversified funds to support that. So it's really starting, I think, at that basic level of the schools that we want to work with to ensure that we are having the furthest reach, and then really doing outreach for students to then self-select to take additional programming. And something I just wanted to comment on, actually, in terms of, in addition to discipline that comes through the arts, right, and meeting those deadlines, I think it's safe to say that the importance of being present is what happens in the creative process, right? You can't really phone it in if you're in a recital. You can't phone it in, in a performance mode, but even just learning any sort of discipline or
Shelby's,
painting.
Shelby, you just cut out for a second. Could you just repeat that last sentence?
So sorry. Oh, I just said that in addition to the discipline, whether it's performance or wheel throwing or painting, right? It's about being in the present moment, which is, I think, is so important, because we've learned really well, especially in Zoom life, to multitask. But the arts brings us back to, let's do one thing at one moment.
Shelby's making such an important point. And, it's interesting, Shelby, how you connected it to my question about lower levels of income, because I think that with the COVID situation, we have young people who might be living under difficult circumstances where there's a certain amount of trauma, right? Doubly traumatized, and then school had to stop, triply traumatized. Liz, how do you ensure that you're reaching out to young people of all income levels, and that they can actually pursue their art and be present and have a little bit of relief from their own worries?
Yeah, I mean, that was an important part of, what we did. We still actually are operating in a remote environment and have been since last March. I shared that we're one of the largest recreational partners of Department of Homeless Services. And so over the course, and still we currently are doing that because they're not fully functioning in in-person programming. We've been sending monthly art kits to about 1,600 kids every month, along with activity packets and kind of fun cards that are inspired by different artists, so that they can make art and have that experience, whether it's because it brings them joy or brings them relief or just giving them something to do. So we continue to do that. We've connected with some of our community partners via Zoom, although, sadly, the digital divide is ever present in New York City housing for sure. And then, really the teens in our program, all of them have mentors that they work with over the course of the year. And so we've been lucky to be able to provide, kind of Zoom and Google, and they've been meeting virtually. We've done artist studio visits, where an artist is in their home or in their studio, and we can have, 30 kids on the call meeting with them. So we've made it as accessible as possible. We've sent art supplies, directly to our kids. We've, put Wi-Fi in place, and hotspots for kids who needed it. We gave out 40 computers to kids last year so that they could, participate in programming and summer internships. So we're trying to make it, as accessible as possible. And I think we've done a good job, or I should say my team has done a really good job at making that possible.
Well, let's talk about that team, because so often the teams who teach are also teams who individuals who perform, right? They're individual artists. Liz, is that true for your teachers, for your staff? Are they also people who are working artists and educators and so on?
Our program is, like I said, all of the teens in our program have a mentor, and many of those mentors may be a working artist by day, but they may be, lawyer by day and just passionate about the arts, or, studied, have some type of degree in arts that they want to continue to give back to young people. My staff, definitely, we have some professional artists, some working artists. And so, yeah, it's great for them to be able to obviously, share what they do and their skills. I personally have zero artistic skills. Other than the appreciation for it, but
it's the collaboration of amongst people with different skills. We just took 2 polls. The first one, we asked whether art should have equal ranking with testable subjects like reading, writing, and arithmetic, and 95% said yes. Now it's a select audience here, but that's very interesting. And then the second poll was also even more interesting. We said, how many days of creative arts, so visual, music, literary, dance, theater, and so on, should be required in the 180-day K through 12 school year? And nobody said zero. In other words, everybody felt that art should be a required subject. That was the important word here. 5% said 4.5 days of instruction, about 45 minutes weekly. 32% said 9 instruction days, or about 90 minutes weekly, right? And then 64% said there should be a minimum baseline and more for interested students. So there is a lot of support here for arts, and I would just assume that it is the basis for that support are some of the points that you've all mentioned. Michael, in terms of your staff, your teachers, your volunteers, are all those people connected, or many of them connected to performance themselves, and are they themselves musicians?
Yes, in fact, one of our training exercises, and we just established some really stringent core values for everybody who's on our staff, is that they have some kind of musical acumen. They have to have something going on. Most of our teaching artists, we have 22 teaching artists, and they are, not most of them, all of them are practicing artists. And they are musicians. Some of them tour, some of them play in different venues here in the city of Chicago, and then they are very good at what they do. And then even our administrative staff has some type of music acumen where they know about music, even if they're not practicing professionals. They have to know exactly what we do, and that's part of our culture. So that is very important to us, to be able to speak music, as it were.
And Chicago is a great arts town. When I'm in Chicago, I'll tell you where I am at 1:30 in the morning. Kingston Mines.
Kingston Mines, of course, right? Because it's open to 3 o'clock in the morning.
That's right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And you never know what you're going to get, right? I mean, you have house bands, but it could be great, or it could be not well.
Yeah, right. But no, I have many friends who work there at the Kingston Mines.
And let's not forget LA, Shelby. In terms of your staff and LA, Chicago, New York, arts towns, my goodness, the people who come through your doors are going to be, some of them are going to be tomorrow's artists, right? The young people who come through. So talk a little bit about your staff and where they come from.
Sure. So part of, we really promote having teaching artists, professional artists that are exhibiting themselves. So our staff is actually made up of working artists that are also educators. We have exhibiting visual artists and dancers, and even within our development and communications department, there's people that are coming from theater backgrounds, musical theater backgrounds, as well as just theater in general. So we're pretty eclectic staff.
And it's a support for the arts ecosystem in each of these towns, right? I mean, we've all heard about how Broadway in New York and live performance in Chicago and in LA, theater in LA, that people are really suffering during this COVID time. So this was really a lifeline, a way for artists to continue to explore and share their gifts, right?
Yes, certainly. And I think the arts, is a healing tool. It gives you the outlet to express yourself on any given subject. And we've really promoted that, as we all here have had to pivot to online, and virtual events, but also using the arts as a way to talk about what's happening in the world, right? To have a socially relevant topic and then use the arts as a way to engage around that topic. So I think that also makes for a healing space.
Also talk about American civil society, because we've all had to live through divisions, insurrectionist activity. We've had violence in the streets. We've had peaceful protests attacked. We've had peaceful protesters run over. Can we just talk a little bit about how art creates connection that allows people to bridge differences? Michael, how do you see the role here when you look at your students and your faculty and so on? Do you feel like you have Are you just about art, or are you also about something else that's important to America?
Well, I'm about a couple of things. I think one of my biggest missions is to galvanize or unify a community, to give a community self-worth, and then to once that community has some self-worth, then they are comfortable exchanging with other cultures. So that here in Chicago, we have what is called the Chicago Music Exchange, where students from each side of the city or each culture has an opportunity to share with one another. But you have to have something to share, right? So you have to have some unified things going on in your community, things that govern it. So one of our biggest goals is to have our ensembles that we have, which are pretty good at what they do. I mean, they're excellent at what they do, is to go around to the community and do live performances, and to make sure that the community sees excellence in the community. And so that we can go, once we've done that, then we exchange with other communities. And then another thing, and not to belabor the point, but another thing is to recognize what's in the community, and then the deficiencies that are in the community, and then the lack of resources in the community, and to try to express that we want to have equal resources. Kids of all cultures are very talented, but we want to be able to show that no matter what the socioeconomic situation is, that these kids deserve equality in the arts and quality resources and good equipment and good teachers and all of that. So there should not be a socioeconomic gap. And so that's one of the battles that we're fighting as well.
And Liz, how do you see your impact on New York's civil society? We're just getting into a post-election phase where there are a lot of debates about different positions, different segments of society, and New York has always been a microcosm in its own way of America's inner cities. How do you see free arts functioning as a civil society organization, not just an arts organization?
I mean, similarly to what Michael said, I think that art is a great equalizer, I think, but everybody needs to have access. Everybody needs to have the opportunity. That's really what free arts has been about since inception, really leveling that playing field. It's important, for the community, for everybody, for, young people to feel comfortable to walk into any, cultural institution or into any gallery, or to feel that they have that self-worth and that ability to be a part of it. There's a huge shift, certainly, obviously, across the country in even businesses and corporations to sort of help, to create more equity. And so I think that that's really what, we're trying to do. And that's how I think we'll, leave our lasting impact, certainly on New York, or certainly in the creative field, going forward.
We just completed another poll, Liz. It's very interesting. We asked people to answer a question of, do you believe that arts education has a positive impact on children, in terms of, we let people pick from a list of about eight different categories. The three that got the most clicks were development of abstract skills with application in other fields, including creative problem solving, decision making, planning, time management, and so on. And then we also got very large answers for reduced dropout rates, increased classroom engagement, reduction in disciplinary infractions, higher test scores, and then also development of motor, communication, and language skills. So these are all really important fundamentals, right? Sharing experiences for a civil society. Shelby, we're coming to the end of our time. So let me give you the last word. If you were to admonish America on how we should proceed and how we should view art education, equality of access to resource, what would you tell us all in terms of how we should invest and how our tax dollars ought to be used to create this soft impact on society?
Thank you for
It's
that
all on your
question.
shoulders, Shelby.
I love that. You know what? I'll figure it out. Here we go. I got the answer. Problem solved by 8:30 my LA time. Here we go. So one, I think when thinking about funding the arts, don't think of it as separate or a secondary part of your curriculum, right? It is just as important. And right, I know I'm speaking to the choir, no pun intended, but it's an integral part of our school day. So as however you fund your math program or your language arts program, that's how you should be funding the art. That's how you should be funding any arts program. I would also say this because the arts is creating that platform for social emotional learning. It's creating the place where we are helping young people come into themselves and then empathize with the rest of the world. So it's really on our shoulders in creating communities beyond just the walls that you respectively see. So that's my platform on how to fix the world. You need us artists. We solve problems. We speak out when there's something that needs to be changed, right? We're promoters of social change, and we do it in a creative and fun way. So,
Liz, Michael, would you endorse Shelby's platform here?
Yes.
Absolutely, positively.
100%.
Oh, thank you.
I guess the new buzzword now is like STEAM or something like that, where you have not only just STEM, but arts included. And I'm not a big fan of buzzwords, but certainly the arts is as important. And what does it do? It makes us even more human, as it were. The arts after you've learned how to be a nurse, what makes you human? The arts. Being able to express yourself, being able to enjoy someone else's communication with you. That's what makes us human. And so definitely learning about it and being exposed to it, and it's just as important as calculus.
So thank you so much. If we could, it seems to me that Shelby's platform, the Shelby Williams-Gonzalez platform for the arts, is something that the Republicans, the Democrats, red states and blue states, conservatives and liberals, everybody can get behind. Why? Because it helps bring the country together. It helps individuals become more productive and gain skills and create joy. Thank you so much. Shelby Williams-Gonzalez, President and CEO of Inner City Arts in Los Angeles. Michael Manson, Founder and Executive Director of the Musical Art Institute of Chicago. And Liz Hopfan, Founder and Executive Director of Free Arts, New York City. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us today. Everyone have a great day. Attendees who
Thank you.
provided questions, thank you so much.
It's a pleasure to be here.